Alright, so next we're going to move on to section 3.7, which is equations of lines in the coordinate plane. This section is actually going to be made up of 7 videos. I'm going to try and keep each one really short. There's a lot in this section, and I thought it would be easier if we just broke them up into a lot of smaller, different videos. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the slope of a line. Right, and the slope is denoted by the letter M. So anytime you see the letter M, you're representing the slope. And when we say the slope, we usually use the words rise and run. So we'll say our slope is equal to our rise over our run. That's one way that you can remember it. Or the way that I will usually write it on the board is our slope is equal to our change in y over our change in x. Right? And we can represent our change in y by doing the formula where our slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Alright, so we have this example here. It says, what is the slope of line B? So we only want to know what the slope of line B is. So first let's highlight that line B. It's this line here. Alright, we have 2 points on here. We have this point, we have this point. So we have the ordered pairs of -1, 2, and then the ordered pair of 4, -2. So our formula for a slope is m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Right, so what we need to do now is we need to determine which points are x1, y1 and which ones are x2, y2. It doesn't matter which one you make which, it's just you have to stay consistent. If you make this x1, then our 2 has to be y1. It cannot be y2. Right? So we need to be consistent in our order pairs. And if this is x2, then this has to be y2. And now we just plug it in. So m is equal to y2, which we know now is -2, minus our y1, which we know now is 2, over top of our x2, which is 4, minus our x1, which is -1. Minus the negative turns to plus. So our m is equal to -2 minus 2 is -4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So our slope is equal to -4 over 5. Alright, and then the last thing we're going to talk about in this video is just identifying the different types of slopes that we have. So we have 4 different slopes. We have a positive slope, we have a negative slope, we have a zero slope, and an undefined slope. So it's good to be able to identify which type of slope it will be before you start doing any problems, because when we look at B, if we knew that this was a negative slope and we got a positive answer, then that means we did something wrong. And then if we know that this is a positive slope here, and if we get a negative answer, once again, we did something wrong. And being able to identify zero and undefined slopes will make us be able to answer these 2 questions here very quickly. Alright, so when you're doing this, you read them like you would a book, left to right. So you start at the left part of your graph, and then you start moving to your right. You can imagine that there's a person drawn on each graph all the way to the far left that we can. And if the person is walking uphill as he moves on our graph, then it is a positive slope. Or if as we go from left to right, our y value is increasing, it is a positive slope. If our person all the way to the left of our graph is now walking downhill, that means it is a negative slope. Or as we move from left to right, our y value is decreasing, then that means it is a negative slope. Here, if we draw a person on all the way left, he's not moving up or down, it's just a flat slope, but the way that we will say that then is 0 because he's not moving anywhere up or down. So if as we move from the left part of our graph to the right, if there's no change, then it means it is a 0 slope. Here, the only place that we can draw our person on this graph is at the very top. And if he tried to walk off, he would fall down and he would be undefined. And his body would be all over the place. He would be undefined. Right? So you won't be able to tell who that person is anymore. So if our graph is going vertically, straight up and down, that is an undefined slope. Let's go back and show why this is undefined. So for this problem here, we're going to solve for the graph or the slope of this line D. All right, so the 2 points that we have for this line D are the points 4, 0 here, and then the points here 4, -2. All right, so then we can label these x1, y1, x2, y2. And then m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So our m is then equal to negative 2 minus 0 over top of our x2, which is 4, minus our x1, which is 4. So our slope is equal to negative 2. 4 minus 4 is 0. Are we able to divide by 0? No. All right, so since it's undefined, since we can't divide by 0, it's undefined, so it's an undefined slope, meaning we cannot divide by 0. All right, that's it for this video before we move on to the next ones.